Good morning and welcome to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Hump day.
Yes, it sure is. It's been a quick week.
Boy, it has.
Even though I thought it was Tuesday this morning when I came in, so there's that.
Let's say it shows you how much fun we're having.
Yes.
It's right now. Here it is Wednesday though, and it is the 7th day of June. Glad to have you aboard. School board meeting going on today.
Yes, and at 11 a.m. today, they are having a public hearing on the budget for next year. I think that they're asking for more money. It's like a 10% increase. I think that that's absolutely insane. It's the proposed FY24 budget. They will start at 11 today at 2 Laura Avenue, which is the Whitney complex.
Right.
60% of our taxes go to these schools, and they are not doing well.
No, they're not.
So we throw more money at it. Why?
Because if you throw more money at it, things get better.
Oh yeah, we've seen that.
Just like all of those, like all the federal programs that they have, like in New York City. Have you seen the new vending machines that they have now to dispense?
For crack pipes?
Yeah, to crack pipes. Oh, and also Narcan, and I think a spoon or something.
Just making the world better, right,
yeah.
Bill?
And not charging them for it, so it's free. Of course, the taxpayers are paying for it, but.
So here's the thing: how do states like New York and California continue to function?
I think they're doing it. They think the money comes from the Big Rock Candy Mountain or something. I don't know what it is.
Well, the only thing I can think is that the federal government keeps funneling money into these places, which is coming from a state like ours, and we're paying for this crap.
Yeah.
Steve Statton says porn is expensive in school. I guess so.
Yeah, I suppose so.
They still haven't removed those books. We've actually we have a great group here that really works a lot on trying to get these books removed, and it's amazing. Every week they find a new book that is more disturbing than the ones we found the week before. So that's always exciting.
Yeah, and if you were selling these or trying to give these to the kids on the street, you'd be arrested for it. Yeah. But they want to hear public opinion today, and it's at 11 o'clock. So the proposed 2023-2024 budget, according to the documents, school system, they say that needs around $852 million for the 2024 fiscal year, and that's up from $700 million last year.
And I think
you need another $150 million.
Well, here's the other thing: they said that enrollment has also gone down. So enrollment's gone down, less students, but you need more money. What's going on here?
Yeah. Good question.
So they didn't report the numbers in that article, but I do know that it was a double-digit number of how much the kids going to school are actually being pulled out of these schools and either going to private school or being homeschooled. So, yeah. And there's actually a great homeschool network here that I was really surprised to find out about, but there are other options besides the public schools, and but also they keep taking our money and failing our kids. So yeah. I'm not really sure what we do. It seems like these people don't represent the people. They line their own pockets. I'm not sure what benefits you get from being a school board member, but they do not vote for people's best interests, and they think they need more money for I'm not sure what.
Well, and the fact that they have these crappy books that they are doing that are just 100% porn is pathetic. They say staff salaries are the biggest increase in the budget, 13.5% of the budget, overall budget. Amount of money to cover employee benefits also has increased 22% from last year. And
I'm sorry, inflation went up for everyone, and we didn't get an increase.
No, I didn't. As a matter of fact, we didn't.
No, so I'm sorry, Bill. I don't.
There's a thing called live within your means. And by the way, you'd have more students than maybe if you were doing the job of educating the kids. And it's good here. When I see what's going on around the rest of the country, I was glad to see the people, I think, in Glendale, California. Finally, parents were really reading the Riot Act to the board members about teaching kids all this critical race theory and gender identity in the second and third grade. So these kids don't know what sex is. They don't know they're not sexual creatures. And they actually had a group of folks outside who were saying, Antifa, get out of here. And we're pushing back, and all of a sudden the Antifa people were feeling the brunt of what they've been dishing out for the last 3 years.
Yeah, well, and
good for them.
The
This,
thing
this,
is it's the religious communities. They were, you
yeah.
know, Muslim, and I'm trying to think of what other nationality they were, but very religious people
Hmm.
that are standing up and saying enough.
Yeah.
We're done with the pride crap in our schools. There is no reason that we need to be celebrating pride in schools. There's no reason for that. I think that it's gotten way out of hand. We have 144 days on the American calendar that is dedicated to LGBTQ plus IA all the way through. I don't know.
Yeah, whatever
Yeah,
language, whatever letters, whatever symbols that you want to
144
include.
days.
144 days. Yeah,
That's crazy.
that's almost a half a year.
Mhm.
Yeah, pretty much. So, and to the Savannah Police Department that have put out these LGBTQ X04 badges for the police officers, the rainbow badges. Now, I did find out this morning that those weren't at taxpayers' expense. That the officers have to pay for them if they want to wear them, but I'm beginning to wonder if that's the case. And also, the mayor seems to be excited the fact that shooting deaths are down. Have more shootings, but the deaths are down. So that's a good indication that the crime wave is
Do your research. It's an election
yeah.
year,
Hmm.
so do your research when it comes to a lot of these local races, because what they're telling you is not true. We talked about this yesterday.
Uh-huh.
They are They're saying that they only had one murder in Savannah,
Hmm.
but they only had one murder arrest in Savannah this year. So nothing has gone down. These people are lying to you with statistics, which they love to do.
Hmm. Yeah, as the late great Mark Twain always used to say, and he always had some erudite comments to make. But he said there are lies, there are damn lies, and there are statistics. So it's kind of like the one that's we'll get to politics here in a second. Not that this isn't, but when we talk about the presidential candidates, but there's a group called that I am really ashamed of them, called Make America Great Again. I'm ashamed of this group that is putting these ads on that are dissing Ron DeSantis. The circular firing squad is not working. It won't work, and we're going to be talking about that in extensively here in a moment. But they've got this ad running that said Ron DeSantis wanted to raise your taxes 23%. No, he was going for the national sales tax, like kind of like the fair tax that we were talking about. You'd get your entire paycheck. You know, when we get tax reform, when you start getting your entire check and you have to sit down and write a check to the federal government, a check to the county government, a check to the state government, and a check to the city government, when you find out how much tax is actually going out of your paycheck because it's already out when you get the check, so you don't think any more about it if they raise another dollar or two. It doesn't seem like it's that big a deal. It is a big deal. We are being overtaxed and overburdened. No society has ever existed when the taxes have gone up over 50% without going to slavery, and where it's like 60% now.
Mm-hmm.
It is pathetic. And
Well, it never ends, though. You
no,
see it.
but what
It's never enough.
they're trying to make it sound like that Ron DeSantis is actually going to add 23% more to your taxes than what he voted. No, no, no. He was voting for a 23% sales tax, period. You got all your paycheck and you pay for a new item with that sales tax. That's what he was going for. And they're trying to make it sound like he was trying to raise people's taxes. No, he was actually trying to get you more money.
Well, and I think that I don't know. I have a lot of opinions on the presidential stuff. I do think a lot of this stuff is a vanity campaign. Someone
Like Chris Christie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Running, like, why are you running? You didn't
Yeah.
do well before, and you're more unlikable now, in my opinion, than you were, 7
But
years ago?
yeah, right.
Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah.
gosh.
And here's what he had to say yesterday when he was making this announcement.
And if you can't admit to the people you want to lead that you're not going to be perfect, and if you decide that the people who you ask to come with you to lead will always be the ones who are blamed when anything goes wrong, that they'll be called names, that they'll be dismissed, and that after they leave your service, they're nothing but idiots, beware. Because that leader not only will not serve you, they will not be able to find anybody who will serve them. And a lonely, self-consumed, self-serving mirror hog is not a leader. And so now we have pretenders all around us who want to tell you, pick me, because I'm kind of like what you picked before, but not quite as crazy. But I don't want to say his name, because for these other pretenders, he is, for those of you who read the Harry Potter books, like Voldemort. He is he who shall not be named. Well, let me be clear, in case I have not been already. The person I am talking about, who is obsessed with the mirror, who never admits a mistake, who never admits a fault, and who always finds someone else and something else to blame for whatever goes wrong, but finds every reason to take credit for anything that goes right, is Donald Trump. And if we don't have that conversation with you, we don't deserve to ask for your vote. We don't deserve the mantle of leadership. We don't deserve to have you think of us as people worthy of leadership.
That was during his announcement for
President.
Yeah, I don't know why.
And you know, and Donald Trump was good to him. Helped him out and appointed him to a very powerful position. I wish he'd made him Attorney General, to tell you the truth.
Oh, see, I think that Chris Christie was a huge problem in the Trump administration.
Well,
I think that he made some really bad recommendations for some of these cabinet positions that really got Donald Trump into trouble. So whatever Chris Christie wants to say, that's fine. But I think that he was part of a little bit of that establishment leftover problem that we saw happen in the Trump White House.
Yeah, Trump's got a big ego, but then again, so does Chris Christie.
I was going to say, which person running for president doesn't
Exactly.
have a big ego?
We always say, you know, those of us in the broadcast business, those of us on mic and in front of the camera, if we don't admit, we have big egos. I mean, if you don't admit that, then you're lying. So, you know, that's why we're in front of the camera and not behind it. But at the same time, you know, you should realize that is, you know, part of your personality. People come out to Donald Trump rallies and they say that there's no Trump voter. That is nonsense. They show up for him when they'll show up for nobody else. He's already had the experience. I don't like a lot of the things that he says. I don't like a lot of the tweets that he made, but I would rather have 1.8% inflation rather than almost 10 or 12% that we're going up to now. I would rather have us going after our own oil and employing our own people and putting people to work and selling that oil to our friends rather than having Russia do it and make all the money to buy weapons to attack Ukraine. I would rather have a president who stands up to the Chinese, and when the Chinese try to sink one of our ships or shoot down one of our planes or make any kind of military maneuvers that are extremely dangerous and could cause a war, that he would take them to the woodshed, bringing jobs back to America. That's what I prefer, and that's what Donald Trump knows how to do.
Well, I think that's what we've gotten away from, Bill. Like, we're not voting on a personality. Like, this is not American Idol. Like, yeah. I'm sorry. We're voting for someone that can control situations and make sure that America does well. That's what I care about. My life was a hell of a lot better 2 years ago than it is now. Mm-hmm. And financially speaking, and our friend Steve is with us this morning, and he says Chris Christie is just shoring up his job at ABC.
Yeah, there you go.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, for sure.
You're not wrong. Well, we have more news on presidential candidates when we get back.
The circular firing squad continues. Stay real. Get Real America, we are focused on Savannah, but we'd like to hear from other communities as well. We have a lot in common.
Serving the Savannah area with the power of the Shield since 1934, with personal insurance, employee benefits, and business insurance. With integrity, security, and trust. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
Come join us today at Sweet Potatoes Kitchen for some of that good Southern home cooking, like fried chicken, fish, and mouth-watering banana pudding. Say it's the best in the world, and you won't get an argument from me. Also, those vegetables are fresh and delicious. Voted Southside's best restaurant in Savannah at least 5 times, and large corporate parties are welcome. Tell them Bill Edwards sent you. Drop by and eat today. Everybody loves sweet potatoes.
Years ago. Welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Well, the circular firing squad has never worked before, and it's not going to work this time. You just saw Chris Christie. Now, I'm shocked at the statement that was made by Chris Sununu, who I happen to like. Has done a good job. I liked his dad, who was the first, I think, chief of staff when George W. Bush was first elected, and he has been a great governor. He's been elected by a landslide, just like DeSantis was in Florida. He was been elected by a landslide in New Hampshire. But he said he's not going to, and he's been announced as a presidential candidate, but he says he's not going to run. And the reason that he's not going to run it because he doesn't want the field too crowded, because he wants to make sure that Donald Trump doesn't get elected. What? But here's what he's been telling to some of the folks in the news media.
But towing the starting line in the 2024 Republican presidential primary, Governor Chris Sununu announced today he is not running for president, citing the desire not to crowd the field of challengers to former President Donald Trump.
As a non-candidate, I can be a little more unleashed. I can talk a little bit more about where we need to be as a party, about the future, bringing independence and young people onto the ticket. And I think there's just a responsibility to, not just myself, for others to be able to step up and understand this isn't about us. It's really about the Republican Party and ultimately the country.
Sununu has often said he could play the role of referee in the first-in-the-nation Republican primary. In a close race, his endorsement could be a difference maker, but he's in no rush.
We got to see where they go, right? I think I'm not afraid of endorsing a candidate. I think we may use our influence that way, but we got to see who can get on that stage and where the debates fan out, who starts surging or not, who can do the retail politics.
Analysts say even though he's out, Sununu will still be among the Republicans using a national platform to urge the Republican Party to move on from Trump.
And with all of the candidates out there, no one has really figured out a way to strip votes away from the former president, who really is almost like an incumbent. And that's the big challenge.
While he's not running for president, Sununu has still not said if he's going to seek an unprecedented 5th term as governor. And in our interview today, the governor told us that running for re-election is something that's on the table, but that decision is likely going to wait until after the legislative session is over and a budget gets passed. Reporting live in Concord, Adam Sexton, WMUR News 9.
Okay, he lied. He's not live. But that was the story that was run. Once again, Brittany, this idea of running against Trump in the Republican Party is a bad move. I was very impressed with they had 2 South Carolina voters on Fox and Friends First a couple of days ago. Said, what do you think of Tim Scott? After he made the appearance on The View, and said, we love Tim Scott, but we're voting for Donald Trump. And this is a young woman who was married to a police officer. She said, he's had the experience. He can hit the ground running. We like what he did last time. We know he can do it this time. And both of them, to a person, said, we're all in for it. We like Tim. By the way, his numbers have gone way up since being on The View. A lot of people have, and I think, Tommy Lahren made a great point of saying, I'd like to see more candidates go. Ron DeSantis turned down an invitation to go on The View. I think that was a mistake. You got to go into the belly of the beast. Look at what happened when Donald Trump went into those black churches that the Republican candidates have been avoiding like the plague for the last 50 years. and how much better he got, how many more votes he got from the black community.
Right. But for Ron DeSantis, I will say, I don't think he can carry his own on The View.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little bit concerned about his energy and his charisma. I think he's really good when he's in control of a press room. I think that's a lot easier to do than having to have like a debate with someone or converse. His announcement was lackluster at best.
Mm-hmm.
On Twitter, I think he thought that was going to be a great idea. He was not prepped for that. It was a very monotone type announcement. He didn't do it on video. It was really weird. It was like a phone call that he was on that got broadcasted, and it didn't go well. And I think that charisma, you do have to, and I'm not saying that he couldn't be president one day. I just don't think he's there yet. He needs a little bit more of that training.
I agree.
And he should really go through press training. I think that's really important for all the candidates, but he needs to, and I think he can be taught how to have that charisma and pitch, tone, inflection, those types of things that he really needs to do in order to pull people in. But I don't think this is his year. But because I don't have an issue with DeSantis, I have an issue with some of the money that he's taking right now. He is backed by the Bushes, which I think for me is a huge issue. But, I think you got to look at people's donors and see where those donors come from, because that's who they're owned by at the end of the day, Bill, and that's who they're making promises to. And I think that's where politics has really gotten us in trouble. And there's a lot of candidates that are backed by people that I no longer want involved in politics.
Well, that was the beauty of Donald Trump. He didn't owe anybody anything because he had his own money. He was financing a lot of that campaign with his own money. When he became president, he did not take the paycheck. He made that donation to charity. He donated that money to charities, and that I think is a great symbol, because he didn't have to kowtow to any special interest group or anything of that nature, because he has his own wherewithal, and so does his family.
Well, and I do think that one of Trump's strategies is that he will say, I don't know, it depends on what the deal is.
Mm-hmm.
He's a deal maker. That's what he does.
Exactly.
And we really need that right now.
What got me, Brittany, is we always that they were saying, well, he's never been in politics. What does he know about Middle East, or what does he know about foreign policy? This guy's been doing foreign policy his entire life. He had places in Russia. He had places in the Middle East. He is used to negotiating. And they always talk about, I always used to fall out of the chair laughing when they talk about the Middle East peace process. He actually got one done that they have now, of course, destroyed.
Yes. I mean, they've destroyed everything. But
and how many soldiers did we have killed the last 2 years he was in office? Zero, unless it was one of those training accidents, because military training can be just as dangerous sometimes as combat.
Well, and one of the things that actually came up with Vivek Ramaswamy that I was actually quite surprised about is that he will not go back to banning transgender in the military, which I think is interesting, because Trump did ban that in the military. But when you look at it, when you're taking hormones and things like that, like, I don't think those people should be in the military, because there's too many issues that come from taking hormones, and like you have to take shots at certain times. And I mean, it's a really, it's a life commitment, and that's like a schedule. And when you're in the military, it should be about, being trained, and, that's where your focus should be, not on like, well, I had the surgery, so now I got to go take this shot. I got to go do this. And they're not as stable.
Yeah, they shouldn't have the surgery at our expense, which is what has happened.
Yes.
But the military is designed to kill people and break things. That's exactly what it's for, and to protect us and to beat the bad guys. And we should have superiority equipment-wise. And this isn't like an equal playing field. I don't want an equal playing field. I want our soldiers to have the best equipment. I want them to have the most ammunition. And by the way, we may be running out of that because we're giving it to Ukraine. I don't know where that's going. But you want to have the best submarines, the best airplanes, the best trained soldiers, and not worried about their pronouns. I bet you there's not a single Chinese soldier that worries about their pronouns, or one from Russia either.
Well, I think that they showed like what kids were learning in America and what they were learning in China. And the kids are literally assembling guns in China, and we're like talking about pronouns and rainbows. So Real exciting stuff for us here in the U.S.
Sure is.
Our friend Lizzie's with us this morning, and she said transgender people are a permanent patient. They absolutely are, and we still do not know the full repercussions of what this is going to do to people.
No.
We do know that it shortens their life significantly to have these surgeries. So I think that's another huge issue. If you're on a battlefield and you're a life patient, like, does the doctor travel with you then? Like,
Yeah.
what does that look like? I don't know. It sounds expensive.
Well, I don't know. I'd like to check in with our medical schools. We have one here in Savannah. I think the University of Georgia is going to put in another one. But we have one at Mercer University on the Memorial campus right up the street, right across the street from us, as a matter of fact. But a UGA Medical School in Augusta, right up the road from us, is one of the best in the world at MUSC, Medical University of South Carolina in Charleston. And I'd like to find out what their philosophy is and what they're teaching young doctors these days. When you have at Vanderbilt University, that was considered one of the finest in the world, allowing transgender surgeries and things of that nature. I'm a frustrated thoracic surgeon, okay? Organic chemistry took care of that. But I wanted to be a doctor. And if I were a doctor today and somebody brought their 12-year-old child and said, we want you to chop off his genitals or her genitals, I would say, there's the door. I'm not doing that. That is against my, what's the Hippocratic, what's the first, what's the prime directive of the Hippocratic Oath?
Do no harm.
First, do no harm. This is harmful. This is pathetic. This is evil. The Bible says that God created male and female. There's no asterisks there. Male and female. That's it. And I'm sorry if you're offended.
Well,
I mean, you have to go to your safe space.
Well, that's the thing. I think that we've gotten to the point where people are so offended by words, but our friend Lizzie says medical schools are all going woke, which I agree with. I do think that they've indoctrinated all of these people graduate. Like, I don't want to see a doctor anymore because I just don't think that they're doing the right things. Like these younger doctors and the medical boards are helping to push this. I mean, it's everywhere. Yeah. And
when you have people like Marty McCary who go on and try to tell people, how bad things are, and they want to take away his license, it's pathetic. Also, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya. They tried to take his license away from him, teaches at the Stanford Medical School.
Yep. California is one of the wokest medical boards, and it is also one of the one that sets the standard for a lot of the other ones, which is really scary.
Yeah,
so there's that.
All right, coming up next.
Let's start a revolution, Bill.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good to me.
Let's do that when we get back.
At Get Real America, we want to make sure that the real story gets out, and you can help us as a sponsor or as an advertiser to make sure that word does get out to the community.
Be a sponsor and support your local community here at Get Real America.
I don't think it's an accident that I ended up writing music for a living, because I think I lived in a house where I saw how deeply it affected everyone in the house. And just how much everyone defined themselves by the music they listened to.
Music as a framework, I think, gave my parents my identity from a young age. You can like any music that you want if it makes you feel happy. And now when I hear certain songs, I think of them, and I think of them in their happiest state, and it makes me happy.
If they seem like they're having trouble talking about something, I try to tell them about a time when I felt something similar.
Whatever the issue was, we would tell them the pros and cons and how important it was that they had come to us because we could always help them. I think the real important point, we always told them, no matter what you do, no matter what happens, we will help you through it no matter what it is.
Come join us today at Sweet Potatoes Kitchen for some of that good Southern home cooking, like fried chicken, fish, and mouth-watering banana pudding? Say it's the best in the world, and you won't get an argument from me. Also, those vegetables are fresh and delicious. Voted Southside's best restaurant in Savannah at least 5 times, and large corporate parties are welcome. Tell them Bill Edwards sent you. Drop by and eat today. Everybody loves sweet potatoes.
Serving the Savannah area with the power of the Shield since 1934 with personal insurance, employee benefits, and business insurance. With integrity, security, and trust. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
You know, in the last few years, they've tried to rearrange the language and try to make words mean what they don't. Revolution has become like a bad word or a radical word.
Yep.
But remember for those of you who are over 40, you might remember the American Revolution, because you might have been taught that in school. Well, why was it called the American Revolution? Because we finally said, look, you know, the King of England is not working well over here, and we need to be independent from all of that. And the King wasn't happy about it, and sent a bunch of troops in here, and we had to fight him. Won our independence. Well, revolutions can be a good thing. So let's make sure that we've got a real revolution in this country to turn things around.
Yeah, and I think we have a huge opportunity here to start businesses, Bill.
Mm-hmm.
I think there used to be a time when you could walk into a store and not know their politics, and I mean, that just sounds lovely. Because
politics doesn't enter into it. As Michael Jordan once said, why don't you get involved in politics? Because Republicans buy sneakers too.
Yes, and I actually watched the documentary on Nike and kind of how they ended up getting Michael Jordan. It was a great movie, which you don't see very often. I don't watch any sports really, but I love sports movies because they have the best storylines.
Yeah. You think? Have you seen Invincible yet? I told you.
Yes, I have seen that.
Okay,
I do like sports movies. Like I said,
I mentioned that because it's about Vince Papale, who was a walk-on, literally, in the Philadelphia Eagles back in the late '70s. And when they did, when Dick Vermeil took over as the head coach, he said, "We need some more play. We're going to do an open tryouts, so anybody wants to come out." And hundreds of Philadelphians showed up, and Papale made the team. And what a great story. And Invincible was a Disney movie out about 12, 15 years ago about it, starring Mark Wahlberg as Papale.
He's always in great movies.
So it's really worth watching. But it was I got to meet him personally when he was the guest speaker at my granddaughter's graduation in Charlotte a couple of weeks ago.
That's so fun. I love that.
Yeah.
So PragerU always setting the tone and, start a revolution, start a business.
Yeah.
So let's take a look.
I recently came across a book for grade schoolers titled Sylvia and Marcia Start a Revolution. The moral of the story is this: minority kids should pursue social activism, actually a revolution, to make America a better place. That's almost the conventional wisdom now, but it's completely backwards. If you want to make America a better place for everyone, especially for minorities, forget social activism. Instead, start a business. Starting a business is the real revolutionary act that minorities can take to empower themselves and their communities. Small business owners achieve something no social activist, revolutionary, or politician ever could. They create jobs, not only for themselves, but for millions of others. The United States is home to 33 million small businesses. These businesses generate 2/3 of all new jobs, driving employment, innovation, and economic growth. You could say that small business owners are modern-day alchemists. But unlike alchemists, who try to turn lead into gold, small business owners really do make something from nothing. They create value where it didn't exist before, and the economic impact of this alchemy reverberates throughout their communities and beyond. So who are these small business owners? They are disproportionately minorities. In fact, relative to their population, minorities start businesses more often than their white counterparts, and many are succeeding. Take Carlton Guthrie, for example. Carlton and his brother are the owners of Detroit Chassis, a business that assembles frames for motorhomes and commercial trucks. Carlton grew the company from a small metal stamping shop into a major manufacturer. At present, it earns over $100 million a year in revenue and employs roughly 160 workers, most of whom, like the Guthrie brothers, are black. We see the same trend with Hispanic entrepreneurs. The ratio between white and Hispanic household wealth declined from 8-to-1 in 2013 to 5-to-1 in 2019 as Hispanics became more entrepreneurial. Carlos Gazatua, the Cuban-American owner of Sergio's restaurant in Miami, understands the importance of minority entrepreneurship. He calls on minorities to show their success. He wants the younger generation to know that business success is possible and that the system is not rigged against minorities. Entrepreneurship is the essence of the American dream, Carlos concludes. He couldn't be more right. According to the Kauffman Foundation, 360 out of every 100,000 Americans start a business in any given month. Yet among Hispanics, this figure is 540 per 100,000, 50% higher than the American average. There are 10 million minority-owned small businesses in America, generating $2 trillion of annual wealth and employing 10 million people. Most of these businesses are located in minority communities where they employ minority workers. So it's all good news, right? Well, unfortunately not. Small businesses, because they are small, are much more vulnerable than larger businesses to bad government policies. Consider this. Which business has more difficulty contending with an ever-rising government-mandated minimum wage, the neighborhood dry cleaner or the downtown law firm? Who is more impacted by inflation caused by reckless government spending? The owner of a local barbecue joint or the CEO of a financial services company? Whose bottom line is more squeezed by rising gas prices caused by restrictive government energy policy, the landscaper or the work-at-home data analyst? The lesson here should be obvious. It's already difficult for entrepreneurs to compete against established players, but it's much more difficult when they also have to battle bad government policies. What would good government policies look like? They would follow a simple principle that should be the basis for all government policy. First, do no harm. Every new tax, every new regulation cuts into the bottom line. Add on crushing inflation, and you erode entrepreneurs' already slim profit margins even further. Only by making profits can small businesses expand operations, hire new employees, and increase wages and benefits. Talk to almost any entrepreneur about what they want from the government, and they'll give you this response: leave me alone. To lift up minorities and close the racial economic gap, we shouldn't look to Sylvia and Marcia or social activists or government do-gooders. They are, to put it as kindly as possible, unhelpful. We should look to the millions of economic pioneers, many of them minority entrepreneurs, who are risking everything to make their lives and our lives better every day. So if you really want to start a revolution, start a business. I'm Alfredo Ortiz, CEO of Job Creators Network for Prager University. Thank you for watching this video. To keep PragerU videos free, please consider making a tax-deductible donation.
Remarkable. And give you an example, excellent example Brittany, a few years ago when the Dalai Lama came up with all this, the Affordable Health Care Act, aka Obamacare.
Yes.
There was a friend of mine ran a deli downtown that was, it was stand in line time by 11 o'clock and was doing very well. The store next to him closed and he was going to he needed more room, so he was going to rent that other space and hire about another 10 employees or more. And this is when you actually competed for, people were actually looking for jobs and, and wanted to go to work. But when Obamacare came along and said that he would have to pay more in medical care, that they couldn't work so many hours without giving them all these full benefits and everything, he decided not to open that. So, and that was just one example. Multiply that by, another 10 million.
Well, and then what they did to everyone during COVID, I think a lot of small businesses
Oh.
didn't have a choice but to shut down.
Mhm.
They couldn't afford to stay open, especially when they were allowing places like Walmart to be open all the time, but you're
Sure.
a small business, you have to close. They really picked winners and losers, and that is not the role of government. There are something that I really love talking about is a lot of these new companies that are coming out, they're paving the way. And one of them is a women's magazine. It's called Evie, EVIE, and they have a lot of like substantive articles, which we don't see in any of the women's magazines anymore. And they talk a lot about some of the taboo topics that you're not allowed to talk about, like the impact of birth control on women and what that does. I think it's one of the things that has contributed to having lower birth rates and for women having a harder time getting pregnant. You're seeing, I feel like the healthcare companies have had a big business in that because it is very expensive to do like IVF. But, a lot of women have to go that route now. So they talk a lot about women's health and different things like that, but they also make recommendations on books. And I mean, it's kind of a smart magazine, if you will, going back to, probably 20, 30 years ago, which I'm very excited about. So wanted to mention them. I think it's important that we support the businesses that support our values.
For those of us who don't get out much, IBF.
IVF. I don't even know what it. I don't know what it stands for, but
What is it?
It's basically where you're injecting a steroid or I don't even know what it is exactly, but I mean, it puts women, like people that I know that have gone through it, it's hard on your hormones.
So it's not a good thing.
No, you have to, like, you're putting a shot in your belly like every day, and trying to get pregnant, and you have to be ovulating and you're on a schedule. And
wow.
It actually creates a lot of stress on a marriage to try and get pregnant. So yeah, IVF.
Yeah. And men have a role in this too, because we've seen the testosterone levels dropping down 50% in the last 50 years or so.
Yeah.
And that's something that we need to be, that the media ought to be discussing rather than worrying about pronouns.
Yes.
So let's talk about that more as we come back.
There's a lot more where that comes from.
Yeah,
so
there is. Yeah,
we'll be
so
back.
stay real.
Who is a kid? Well, that's a kid. And another. Look, a gaggle of them. Or is it a herd? Litter? Pride. But what about her? Tell her she's not a kid. Or him. So how do we tell who is a kid? Height? Age, maybe. But some of us have to grow up faster than others. A kid. A kid. A kid wants to make the world better. And one day, he just might. Is a kid fearless? Vulnerable? Strong? Nervous? Yes. 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 Kiwanis is 600,000 kids at heart doing all the little and big things it takes to help children around the world. Because kids need Kiwanis. All of them.
Savannah, I'm coming home, Savannah.
When you're looking to buy a business or sell a business, the experts at Best Business Brokers have you covered. Whether you're ready to cash in on your years of hard work or you're taking that first step in buying a business of your own, they're here to guide you through the process and make sure you get the best outcome possible. By having Best Business Brokers assist you when you buy a business or sell a business, they handle the legwork of the intricate process. This ensures a smooth transition of ownership, allowing you to get to work immediately or receive payment for your business as soon as possible. With base operations in Savannah and Charleston, they service all of Georgia and South Carolina. If you're considering starting a business here, the mild winters and 5-tiered economic areas make these the perfect places to do so. If you're ready to buy a business or sell a business, then you're ready to contact Best Business Brokers. Visit their website at b3brokers.com or call at 912-349-0940.
Serving the Savannah area with the power of the Shield since 1934 with personal insurance, employee benefits, and business insurance. With integrity, security, and trust. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
Come join us today at Sweet Potatoes Kitchen for some of that good Southern home cooking, like fried chicken, fish, and mouth-watering banana pudding. Say it's the best in the world, and you won't get an argument from me. Also, those vegetables are fresh and delicious. Voted Southside's best restaurant in Savannah at least 5 times, and large corporate parties are welcome. Tell them Bill Edwards sent you. Drop by and eat today. Everybody loves sweet potatoes.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Heading down the home stretch here on this Wednesday. Here it is, the 7th day of June. Got a lot of summer camps going on around town, and been trying to contact some of those folks and tell you all about them because some of them are still available. Some are underway right now.
It's always good to have kids in summer school.
Yep,
Keeps them busy,
yep.
and they probably will learn something.
Doing good things, but
Summer
there's
camp.
one that's run by Country Day. There's one at Telfair Academy, YMCA of Coastal Georgia is doing one. Georgia Tech, Savannah campus is doing one. It's amazing.
I always wanted to go away to summer camp. That never happened for me, but I always wanted that.
Yeah, these are day camps for
Okay.
the most part. Yeah.
Well, and I misspoke earlier. It's IVF, and it's in vitro.
Okay.
So just wanted to correct that really quick. And then we were talking about companies that are, not woke, which is always something that we're struggling with now, especially when you see Target. Did you see that Target is also, they've been giving money to an organization that is going against Mount Rushmore?
Yeah. Yeah, forget that.
Yeah. Target is a horrible company, turns out.
Yeah, and in fact, I talked to a Target employee here just recently who told me that they come to work in the morning and without warning, the boss will walk up and said, by the way, you're also working the night shift today.
What a fun job to show up to every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely get out if you can. But there is a company called Red Balloon that is, taking a little bit of a different approach when it comes to jobs.
When I grow up, I want to work for a woke company, like super woke.
When I grow up,
I want to be hired based on what I look like rather than my skills.
I want to be judged by my political beliefs,
I want to get promoted
based on my chromosomes. When I grow up, I want to be offended by my coworkers and walk around the office
on eggshells
and have my words policed
by HR. Words like
grandfather,
peanut gallery,
long time no see,
no can do.
When I grow up,
I want to be obsessed with emotional safety and do workplace sensitivity training all day long. When I grow up, I want to climb the corporate ladder.
Just by following the crowd.
I want to be a conformist. I want to weaponize my pronouns. What are pronouns?
It's time to grow up and get back to work. Introducing the #1 woke-free job board in America, redballoon.work.
Okay, that made me smile.
Perfect.
It's so
Yeah,
funny.
there you go.
We need to see more of that. I think,
Without a
again, we
doubt.
need to have more fun with the
Mhm.
fact that things are so insane. But yes, if you can support Red Balloon, I think that, that's probably the best place to find a job anyways.
For sure.
And Steve Stanton let us know that VBS is at Pooler First Baptist next week from 4 to 8.
Vacation Bible School. A lot of churches are doing that. My church, Trinity Lutheran, also has a great Vacation Bible School. And so check out some of these churches. You can just go to, I'm sure you can do a Google search. I hate to use Google all the time, but unfortunately we're stuck with it. Yeah. Okay.
Brave is a good one.
And by the way, there's also, if for those of you, when you start getting close to 50 or so, you may be getting things from AARP. Avoid them like the plague, as the old saying goes. There's also another saying. It says avoid cliches like the plague. But nevertheless, but avoid them. Use AMAC. The Americans, Mature American Citizens. Great magazine that is just chock full of information. In fact, this month's edition has A Generation at Risk, how the radical left is destroying America's youth, and talking about all the crap that they're teaching in schools that don't have any business being there. What's wrong with the banking system? Tomorrow we'll be talking with Travis Chance of CFG Wealth Management about what the latest is on banking trends and things of that nature, and how to protect your money. And also Jay Ratliff, aviation analyst, who's going to tell us what's going on in the airline industry and what the latest is as we hit the summer travel season. So there's some of the things coming up that we're going to be talking about tomorrow.
I love that. Jay is so funny.
He is. Always has some great stories. And like he says, I'm never again ever going to say I've seen it all because you haven't.
I'm sorry. The story that was brought up with the foot on the tray table,
On the
that
tray
was
table,
so
yeah.
gross. I was like, I never want to be on another airplane ever again.
Or the guy that
People are so gross.
put his carry-on luggage in the aisle and then propped his feet up on it. And, they used to call them stewardesses. We don't anymore. You can't do that because that's sexist. So now you can't call the guy steward. It's flight attendants coming down the aisle with the cart. You can't get past the carry-on luggage sitting there in the aisle, and this guy propped up his feet on it.
Well, he was apparently more important than everyone else.
Well,
though.
that's
Didn't you know?
exactly right. Like
you
that,
know?
like that other passenger we saw just recently, where she had somebody told me it was a man. I thought it was a woman, but wanted to get out ahead of everybody, pushing people out of the way as the plane lands and going through. We showed the video, pushing everybody out of the way when the plane lands. And somebody tried to criticize her and said, "Well, don't you be rude to me?" Well, she's being rude to everybody else.
Yeah, honestly, flying used to be actually very pleasant.
Uh-huh.
COVID hit, and it was actually great because you didn't have to sit next to anyone in the middle seat. And then after COVID, we still had to wear masks, and we saw how that ended up. That was terrible.
But thank God we kept people out of the middle seat, because that's how COVID came under control.
It had nothing to do with COVID, but
Oh.
I will tell you.
And
it was one of their COVID policies, but
And in restaurants, if you had to wear a mask when you walked in because COVID's up here. When you sat down, you could take the mask off.
yeah, and apparently COVID after midnight shows up, so they were
Mhm.
closing stuff after 10 actually, because they
Yeah.
were having a lot of curfews. So after 10, COVID runs rampant through things apparently.
That's right. Yeah,
So,
yeah. But those plastic shields do the job too.
do you think that they were doing like a test on how stupid people are?
Yeah.
The stuff that they came
fact
up
we
with
were-
is just, it doesn't make sense.
And the fact that we were going along with it was the next worst thing.
Yes, well, I think that they did a great job of ensuring fear. That's what they're doing right now too. They're
Exactly.
making Donald Trump the boogeyman, all the things he's going to do.
Fear works.
It sure does, but also it's interesting. I talked to my grandmother, as COVID was happening, and she's like, we were not scared of things. She's like, this is just so weird how scared everyone is.
Mhm.
That's not how Americans typically behave. We're typically very brave, and we'll live our lives. We'll take the risk. We don't. Every time you get in your car, you don't think, oh, I could die today in my car. No one thinks about that.
That was one of the things. In fact, Brittany, glad you brought that up because they were when they were trying to get they turned smokers into the pariahs of society, and they wanted to start putting some government officials wanted to start putting these the bad X-rays of diseased lungs on a cigarette package. I said, what if they did the same thing to car dealerships? What if you had to start putting up pictures of car wrecks and dead bodies lying all over the street. Said this could happen if you use our product, but come on in and buy one.
Well, and I'm sorry, most people know the risk. Like when you see a smoker, guess what? They know the risk when they smoke. It's,
sure.
You know,
Rush Limbaugh, who did die of lung cancer. He said, when he was cigar aficionado, he was on the cover of Cigar Aficionado magazine and things of that nature, always enjoyed cigars and things. And he said, if this puts me in my grave, I understand it. I'm not suing anybody. My family's not going to sue anybody. I understand that that's the risk that I take for enjoying this habit.
Yep, most people know the risks. And I think that's the other thing.
You get on an airplane, there's no guarantee it's going to land safely.
No, there's not. And sometimes I wonder, when you have like a rough landing
sure.
or a rough takeout, makes for a wonderful flight. But I also think with COVID, they instilled so much fear in people because they had that ticker up on every news station on who was dying. And they actually weren't dying of COVID. They were dying with COVID. So whether you went in with a broken leg or anything, they were testing you for COVID. So
some guy gets critically injured in a motorcycle accident. And they test him for COVID. He died of a collapsed lung. He died of a crushed chest or something of that nature. But he had COVID, so that was counted as a COVID death. The statistics were just pathetic.
Well, when you encourage the hospitals to report everything as COVID because they get money for it, what do you expect to happen? 2020 was like one of the most eye-opening years of my life because I couldn't believe that people were just terrified. And they just believed everything that was happening, and it's like this doesn't make sense to me.
I think that used to be a joke years out. I remember back in the 80s, I used to say we used to have a little slogan. Will we be able to see things any clearer in the year 2020? And that seemed like 100 years away at the time. And along came one of my best friends here and one of Savannah's treasures, Harry O'Donoghue, our great Irish troubadour, who's made Savannah his hometown. Said that 2020 was going to be his best year ever. He had contracts galore to play on cruises, to play in Europe and the Caribbean and here at home. And every one of those contracts got canceled. Every one of them.
Yeah, I think 2020 was like going to be this magical number that everyone was super excited about. I remember when it first started in 2020, we had these little things that I worked in corporate at the time, and we had these little things on our desk where we could put like sayings up. And my boss had hindsight's always 2020 on it. And literally, I've thought about that so much since 2020 because of how much my eyes were opened by 2020 and probably a lot of people. So kind of interesting. 2020, it was an interesting year. And our friend Steve says future generations will look on this with contempt. You are absolutely right, because we've allowed them to take so much of our freedoms. And I don't think that kind of power that they felt, I think that they're craving that again.
I remember, Tucker Carlson asking the governor of New Jersey when he was closing down everything, he said, what part of the Constitution gave you permission to do this? And he just looked right and says, we didn't even think about the Constitution when we did this. He said, exactly.
It's a problem. It's a problem. We've allowed these people to become too powerful, and it's no longer serving the people. It's very much serving themselves and serving whoever is paying their paychecks, because they seem to be making a lot of money in these public service positions.
Sure enough. Well, as the old Egyptian undertaker used to say after a hard day's work, that about wraps it up.
Yes, thanks so much for tuning in. Remember to download our app, The Local Spin. Catch us on YouTube, Facebook, Vimeo, Twitch, and Spotify and Apple.
Tell all your friends.